Okay, so what are the Akashic Records? So the Akashic Records are a vibrational record of all your thoughts, feelings, and emotions and actions across all space, time, and dimensions. So it is the record of you in every existence that you have ever been in every like dimension, frequency, whether you're a rock, a person, you know, whatever. Okay. Oh, nice. So it's just a record of every time you have existed. If that makes sense. I don't like to call things past lives because it's all happening all at one time. Like when I'm doing inner child healing with people, and we're going to get into that, inner child healing is a form of Akashic record healing. When I was going to go to school to be a clinical psychologist, and then I made a pivot, and then I started doing energy healing. And so when I was doing kind of more like psychology mindset work, and I was doing child healing with people, it was more like on a subconscious level, and we were healing the memories. But when you get into like Akashic level healing, and I go back and heal people's inner children with them, we're actually jumping into that time and space and speaking with that child as if they are present in the here moment. Like I'm speaking to that child, like almost like time traveling, and that child I'm speaking to is a completely different consciousness form than you. Like they have their own memories and experiences, so it's like a very much deeper level of healing. And so Akasha healing helps you heal different timelines and helps you learn how to quantum shift as well. Hold on one second. Okay. But even that can be considered like a past, but it's not actually, because I'm talking to that child in like real time, right? Or when I'm talking to past people's quote unquote, let's say past lives, like you were in an incarnation at a different time and space. When I'm going in there to speak with that being, which is you, but it's a different reflection, we're actually having a conversation with them, like a real-time conversation, and they're speaking back to us, right? And so how it is not exactly like past, like it's happening in this now moment. Good morning. Hey, Sam. We're talking about the Akashic Records. And so when you think about like past, it's like, oh, how are we supposed to access that? And so I don't really call myself like a past life regressionist because, like some of the things that like Dolores Cannon was doing was like past life regression and like kind of like viewing somebody's like timeline, if that makes sense, and like doing a recount on that. But what you can do, what I do, what people do, is go in and actually jump into that timeline and are speaking to that version of yourself, right? So that's why I say like it's not really like past lives or like future lives, because you can jump in at any time. Hey, Brandon. Oh, thank you. Happy Pride Month. Thank you. Okay, so why do we want to access our Akashic Records? So basically what it does is it helps you step outside of yourself and look at yourself in your life on a higher observation deck, because a lot of us are trapped in these like behavioral patterns and triggers and like emotional states, and it makes it very like foggy to see things and how to make forward movement in your life. And so this allows you to kind of step outside of yourself. It's almost like when you go to a friend for advice and they can see how things are interconnected and you can't because you were too in your situation. This allows you to do that, to do what your friend does for you, right? And so like for me, when I'm like real bogged down into my like 3D human stuff, it creates, objectivity. That's great. Yes. When I'm real bogged down into my 3D life, like my human life, and I'm very stressed and anxious, if I can get into my records, it's going to be a much higher frequency of what I'm looking at. And so it's going to be providing a lot more clarity. Like it's like I'm not in the situation, I'm looking at the situation instead. And that provides so much healing, because when you are stressed and anxious, it releases a ton of cortisol in your body, and now you're in panic mode and fight or flight, and it zaps you out of your imagination and creativity, right? And it makes you like make constricted, fearful decisions. But if you can learn how to shift into your Akashic records and those higher states of being, like you being the higher self, it can help you shift fundamentally into better decisions and timelines. Okay. Excuse me. That would be amazing. Yes, it's very beneficial. It's almost like being a counselor for yourself, if you will, like going to a therapy session as your higher self, looking down at your life. When I'm in the records and I'm like with other people or with myself, it's almost like I'm doing this and looking down at everything and seeing how everything is interwebbed and why I'm doing the things I'm doing and like the different pivots that I can make. Excuse me, my throat chakra. But it's being that objectivity, okay? So healing your inner children is one of the fundamental basis things of the Akashic records, okay? Because when we, as light workers and empaths, we experience a lot of trauma in our lives for the most part, from what I've seen working with people, okay? And when you have a lot of heavy, dense trauma in your body and you haven't healed it yet, it makes it very difficult to tap into your Akashic records. Because it's just heavy. Let me show you a picture. It's very heavy, dense energy. And to get up in your Akashic records is a very high frequency. Like, it took me a long time to learn how to calibrate to that. And when I first started doing it, I couldn't stay in there for very long because I had like so much stuff that I needed to heal in my bottom chakras. But once I cleared all that stuff out, now it's a lot easier to tap in. Hello. We're going to go over this transpersonal chakra system so I can show y'all too. Okay, advice for releasing some of that physical trauma. That's going to be a whole nother chat. But if you want to send me a DM, we can talk about it. I would be happy to talk about it. That's one of the things I love helping people with, is inner child healing. Okay, so when you have like heavy dense trauma that hasn't been healed yet, it's sitting down typically in these bottom chakras down here, and then you need to be up here to access your Akashic records. So if you've got a whole bunch of that stuff down here, it's going to make it more difficult to jump up in these higher dimensional frequencies. Okay, plus when you heal your inner children, they are tapped into your imagination and creativity and your whimsy and your magic. And they don't have all the adult life stressors and things that have like created these filter lenses over you. And so when you release them and unravel that trauma from around them, they can help you get up there, right? And a lot of empaths and light workers that I've come across have religious trauma as well. Anybody in here was in the church? Like in the church experience, I was raised in a Southern Baptist household, and a lot of these things were told to us like, oh, it's evil, right? Oh, Catholic, okay, yeah, evil. That stuff's still running in the background of your subconscious a lot of times. Like when people come to me and they're like, I feel like I'm blocked. I don't know what this is in my hair. I feel like I'm blocked in my spiritual gifts. A lot of times that's from the religious programming that you haven't quite broken away from yet, and that needs to be healed with them. Because there was like so many people saying like, oh, this stuff is scary, like you're gonna go to hell if you do this, or you know, all this stuff. And we like societal programming as well, like things that we see in movies or television, you know, all this stuff, like that stuff is like real deep in there. And even though conscious you knows that healing, like the Akashic records, hey Jenny, the Akashic records are going to be beneficial for your life, sometimes we still have those inner children inside saying, don't do that. Mom and dad or the church or whatever said that I'm going to be burned at the stake. Okay, so sometimes they'll like create this filter lens block from your spiritual gifts because they're doing it out of a safety trauma response. They are trying to keep you safe. Okay, so that's where you have to come in as a higher self and help them unravel that trauma, and you show them that it is safe to go these paths, if you will. Okay, that's something that I had to like heal on a very deep level because my inner children were terrified of that. They were like, I don't want to do that. How do you learn to calibrate your vibrations in that way? Do you mean for your inner children, or do you mean for the Akashic records? Okay, so I'm gonna pull this up. So when you are, we'll talk about that in a second. It'll make more sense. Okay, so when I was learning how to read my Akashic records, okay, and I've been doing it for 4 years now for my credentials, and I have been reading for other people for 4 years. The people who come across me And I can see that you have a archetype of being an Akashic record reader. One, you're a master timeline shifter. Like that is one of your main modalities, your gifts. Because the Akashic records is also quantum shifting timeline reading. Because, okay, when we're talking about soul contracts, okay, soul contracts, sometimes people are like, oh, it's set in stone. I'm like, not really, because you have free will. And there's a gajillion different versions of you, even in this moment. Okay, and every choice you make sends you off on a different timeline. Okay. Yes, I'm 44 and had severe trauma. Sibling didn't. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm sending you a big hug. I know that's super tough. How do you that's what we're getting into, Amanda, is how to calibrate to the records. Okay. So you have all these timelines available in front of you. The Akashic records, once you calibrate your frequencies to that, it helps you see which timelines are going to be most beneficial. So you can make all these micro changes and micro shifts along your journey. I realized when I got into Akashic record reading that I had always been a reader. Like, I'm going to show you all this book that helped activate it within me. But if you feel in your soul that you're an Akashic record reader, once you start getting into this, it's like, oh, I've always been this person. Some people are not consciously aware. Now, can everybody learn to do this? Absolutely. Some people, though, come right out the gate having an archetype of being a reader. Like, you've worked in the Akashic records for a very long time, not just this incarnation, but for many different incarnations. Okay. And so when I unlocked this in my soul contract, I was like, oh, dang, I've been doing this since I was a child. People would always come to me and ask me for advice, and without knowing, I could see all of their available timelines in front of them, and then I would help nudge them onto their most preferable one, like the one that's going to be in highest alignment, because I could see the web of how everything was interconnected in their life. And at the time, I didn't realize that I was reading frequencies within them, and that's what the Akashic records helps you do too. It helps you become a very advanced energy healer, because you can read people at a very deep level. Like when I am doing one-on-one sessions with people, I can, since I've been doing it for a long time, I can feel all the different pain points that people have inside of them. Like, you had a rocky relationship with your dad, or you have religious programming, or you have blockages in your throat chakra, like all that stuff. I can see that stuff, because it makes you a very, what's the word I'm looking for? It helps you read frequencies, if you will, at a very deep level. Okay. So does anybody feel like that? Do you feel like you're that type of person that people come to, and then you're like kind of like nudging them on their most optimal timeline? You may have not been like consciously aware that that's what you're doing, but you can like see everything with them and how everything is interconnected. Okay. Yes. Yes. Okay. And when I'm doing work with people, like in my one-on-one sessions or my mentorship programs, or like anything like that, I'm always looking through people's Akashic records. It makes things a lot easier, because I can get to like very deep depths with people and see all their available timelines. Okay. And I want to say, like I said, anybody can learn to do this. Just some people have the archetype right out the gate where they're doing it. Okay. So we talked about inner child healing. I've got a bunch of notes over here. When you're in your records, let's talk about timelines. When you're in your records, yes and no questions do not work, because you have free will and you can change anything that you want. Because I want to show you like imagine that you have a map across the United States, okay? And you have planned out the whole entire journey, okay? This is you at birth, and you're like, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this. That's great. It's a guide. But along the way, you're like, oh, you know what? I want to go over here instead and take this shortcut. Or, oh, I want to go experience this over here. There's nothing stopping you from changing the plan. Okay, so that's why yes and no questions do not work. Prediction things do not work. You can take a snapshot of where you are at right now, and then get an idea of like what your most optimal timeline is, but you can pivot at any time. And so when I'm doing Akashic record readings with people and they're like, can you tell me when this is going to happen? I'm like, no, I can tell you where you're at right now, but you can change things at any time. Okay, but I can give you a snapshot and get you to the next chapter or the next pivot point, if that makes sense. Okay. I'm an energy healer for unconscious patterns and healings. Didn't think that was the same as Akashic. Yeah, you might already be doing Akashic work. Akashic record readers and Akashic healing, when I come across them, they're doing like very, very intensive healing with people. Okay, reasons why you don't want to tap into your Akashic records, or your people cannot access them, because not everybody can. And when I'm giving, or not ready to yet, as I should say, when I'm doing readings with people, sometimes I can see a whole bunch of different quote unquote past lives. And then other people, their higher self and their guide team and the record keepers will not allow them to have access to those things, because the Akashic records work in splices. Okay, so if you want to have access to one of your past lives, okay, like maybe we feel like we have some like real deep pain back there, okay, if you have inner children that have experienced the same pain, like they have the same core wounds, the record keepers will not allow you to access that past life until you heal your inner child with those things. Because you cannot heal someone else, quote unquote, you in a different timeline until you have learned to resolve that within self now. That's why when I got into Akashic record reading, I couldn't see any of this past stuff back here, because my inner children had a whole bunch of stuff that they needed help with. And the incarnation that you're in right now, who I'm talking to, is the most important incarnation to you. None of that stuff matters at all. Like, the records don't matter if you are not working on the stuff that's going on here. And so when I'm reading people's Akashic records, I can go in as deep and see more of your records if you have been diving in deep within self. But sometimes they will block past life stuff because they're like, you need to focus on stuff here. Okay. And so when I started healing my inner children, then I had past lives start popping up all over the place. Past life asking me to help them heal. And I actually had other incarnations of me from different timelines coming in to mentor me with different things. So it goes both ways. Like, we're going to talk about our oversoul in a second, but your oversoul is your first incarnation when you came into existence. Okay. Your oversoul is kind of like the overseer of all the incarnations. Okay. So I've had my oversoul come forward and be like, hey, can you help this version of yourself heal? Because you've learned how to master healing that wound. Right. And then there's other times where I need help with something in this incarnation, so I'll ask a different incarnation of me to come help me with it, right? Inner child firsthand, yeah, we got to heal the wounds. Now you might have already mastered healing something in your life. Let's say people pleasing, okay? You might have a past life come forward and say, I need help with this because you know how to do it. So I don't want to say like blanket statement like, oh, you can't access those things. I just want people to understand, like, you cannot do deeper soul healing if you're still working on a wound in this incarnation, because like logically that doesn't make sense. Another reason that people have a difficult time accessing the Akashic records is because when you get up into those higher states, hey Justin, when you get up into those higher frequencies and higher states of being, it can throw you into a tower moment. It can throw you into a dark night of the soul. Because when you start looking at your life objectively, okay, you start seeing how things in your life don't need to be in your life. Like relationships, jobs, friends, like there's stuff that has to go for you to get on your most highest aligned timeline. And sometimes that can be detrimental to people. Like if you are already feeling kind of like unsafe in your reality, you're not going to be able to access your Akashic records. Okay. Generally. Okay. Because it's going to throw you into a dark night of the soul. A tower moment that you may not be prepared for. Now, on the other side of that, life is going to be so much better, right? But if you still have like a whole bunch of stuff in your present day life that needs healing and recalibrating and readjusting, it may not be time for you to access that yet. Like I did not access mine until I did a whole bunch of inner child healing. Like I was doing Akashic healing with my inner children, but I couldn't access like these real high states of consciousness because they didn't want me to fall on my face. Okay, and that did happen to me for a certain extent. I did have a very intense dark night of the soul, and it was very scary, and it was very rough. But then on the other side of it, I'm like, oh yeah, I see why all that stuff had to happen, right? But when you start accessing your Akashic records, not only do external things outside of you start shifting, internal things start shifting. You start collapsing paradigms. Like what you thought was true is no longer true. And you recalibrate to a whole new person and being. And that can be very intense. And it can send some people into spiritual psychosis. We don't want that. Okay. So when I come across people and they're like, oh, I want to do this, but I can't access it. I'm like, it may not be time for you to do that yet. All right, because the Akashic record keepers, they're not going to want to send you into a psychosis moment. Okay, what is that? Spiritual psychosis is when you don't have a good grip on your reality. It's where like it gives very much similar to schizophrenia, but it's not. And it's because it's because you're trying to force your third eye open, or you're trying to like force yourself up into higher frequencies before you're ready, or like consciousness expansion. But you got to think you have all this trauma and programming and self-limiting beliefs that you haven't cleared out yet. And so when you launch yourself into higher frequencies before you're ready, it's butting up against all that stuff. And it's causing your body to freak out. It's causing you to be in immense fight or flight states. Okay, because it's like, what do you mean all this stuff isn't real? And now all this stuff is disappearing in my life because it's not in alignment. You know what I mean? Like it's, you got to take your time with it. Because it's just butting up against too much of your programming. Okay. Was pulled away from my corporate job. My spirit wasn't meant to be there. Literally not heard one thing that makes sense. Read that. Thanks. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Well, I don't want to get into that because I don't want to. I was going to say some stuff about like schizophrenia and mental health. I used to work in a mental health ward. But we don't have to get into that because I don't want to speak over anybody's existence. But okay. But if you've been trying to access your records and you haven't been able to, this might be why. Like, they don't want you to jump consciousness too fast all at one time because it can really throw your 3D human life like a wrench in it. And then we start having things and people disappear and jobs and stuff and instability and it all works out on the other end. But when you're going through the void and the tower moment, like it can be really intense. Okay, like it can be a lot. So we got to do it in stages, and I'm going to show everybody like how to do the stages. Okay, to tap into your records, so we can do it safely. There are a lot of children, adolescents experiencing this. Yeah, there's a lot of people going through timeline shifting right now, and it can be very intense. Okay, there's a whole wave of people that just woke up, like a whole bunch of people, a huge group of people that just woke up on their spiritual awakening journey. So a lot of people's paradigms are breaking down right now. And if you're an energy healer in here and you've been feeling a little unstable and insecure, just ask yourself, is this my stuff or is this something that I'm feeling in the collective? Sometimes it's not you. You're a collective grid worker, and so you're going to feel what's going on the cosmic collective grid. You might just be getting ready to help said people that just woke up. Okay? Like, you've been in this for a while, and so you're going to be the teacher, the mentor, the guide for said people. Or maybe you've been deep in your spiritual journey. Like, I help spiritual leaders help those people, right? So you might be a little bit further down that ladder. Like, I help spiritual business owners now so they can help spiritual awakening people. And so it depends on where you're at on your ladder. Okay. Also, make sure you look into the full moon. Oh yeah, the full moon coming up. Okay. If everybody can like pause for me for 1 second, I need to run to the restroom. I'll leave this music on for y'all, but I'll be back in like 2 minutes, okay? Before we get into the steps here. Ugh. Okay, thank you all for holding for me. I'll be drinking a lot of water. Okay, and hey Carrie, I meant to say hello to you. Okay, so what do we need to do here? So first of all, if you're new to chakras, okay, we're going to be talking about the 12 transpersonal chakra system, but if you're new to chakras, we need to start on the main 7. Okay, because the main 7 have more to do with your human incarnation, the one that you're in right now, and you got to do healing on your main 7 before you can get into these external transpersonal chakras. Okay, like, you're not going to be able to access them unless you're working on the main 7 first. Okay, so I just want to say that. So we're not going to talk about the 7, we're going to talk about the ones outside of that, okay, just so you have preparatory. When I was learning about these, I just want you to know, if these are new to you, you've never heard of them before, it's not a concept that you're going to be able to necessarily grasp onto right out the gate. I had to hear the information over and over and over again and do a whole bunch of research and practice and just keep at it and then eventually open them up. And so just take your time with, okay, again, we don't want to like blast open things because that can cause some like, you know, instability. All right. So, y'all let me know, can you see this okay? I might need to turn down the light or turn it up. Y'all let me know if you can see it. And I'm going to hold it up. Okay, cool. If y'all want to take a screenshot of it, but honestly, you can go on Google and type in transpersonal chakras and it will come up. Okay, so this is your Earth Star chakra. It is located underneath your root chakra. It is actually in the earth. It's like a foot in the ground. Okay, so light workers and empaths and neurodivergent people, typically, if you're trying to ground through your root chakra, it's not enough. That's why you feel ungrounded and like you have too much electricity in your body. Okay, because as a light worker and empath, you are naturally connected to these upper planes of existence, these upper dimensions, because you're connected into more of your multidimensionality. And without you even consciously being aware, sometimes you are receiving a lot more downloads and cosmic energy than the quote unquote normal person. And so it overloads your system. That's why it's very easy for us to get into fight or flight and have sensory overload, and why sometimes it's difficult to be around people, because we just have a lot more input coming in. Okay, so your root chakra is going to connect you to, it's a good time. So your root chakra connects you to the ground. Okay, that is for your physical body. Like, that will help you regulate your central nervous system and help you not feel so like electric-y. Okay, so not saying not to ground through your root chakra because that's the first step. Okay, your earth star chakra is a little bit different. Your earth star chakra actually connects you to Mother Gaia, not the earth, Mother Gaia, because those are two different things. Like, there is a dimension of the earth, which is like the plants and the animals and you like physical things, but then you go further and it's like, this is why you came here. Why did you incarnate here? Why did you hear Mother Gaia's call to come here and help the collective? Okay, when you connect into the earth star chakra, you are literally connecting into the heart of Gaia, and she will help you remember. A lot of people think that your soul contract for this human incarnation is up here in the Akashic record chakra. It's down here. Okay, so if you are trying to bypass and get up in your Akashic records to look at past lives and dimensions and star seeds and like all that stuff, none of that stuff matters if you hate your existence here. If you are like checked out. If you are an empath light worker that's just like, I'm just ready to go, I'm done with this, you're gonna have a hard time being up here. Okay, and getting your records. You need to look at your soul contract and connect back in with Mother Gaia and figure out what you're doing here. Okay, because you decided to come here for some reason, and you probably have like a big life mission that you want to, you know, serve the collective. There's so many things on Earth that you can only experience here. Like, there's other dimensional planes and frequencies, but Earth only got certain, like, maybe you can only go on a roller coaster here. Okay, so when you connect in with your earth star chakra, one, it helps you see your soul contract, but it also connects you in deeper with the plant kingdom and the animal kingdom. And so if you want to get into shamanism, we need to be in our earth star chakra. Like, you want to talk to plants and animals on a different dimensional frequency, right? Like, sometimes I'll have bees come up and they'll be just talking to me like while I'm right? You need to be in your earth star. Okay, this will help you ground into your existence, because a lot of empaths and light workers experience a lot of anxiety and depression because you're not used to being in a human body. You are not used to being in a dense form. You are this giant bright beam of light that doesn't usually have this human keeping you in here. Okay, and so your earth star chakra will help you connect up into your multidimensionality, but you cannot access multidimensionality up here if you're trying to bypass, if that makes sense. That's a good reminder for me. Yes. So we want to heal and work on our root chakra to our crown chakra. Also, our earth star chakra is equal as important. Like, we need to be grounding in through this. Okay, this is one of the most important ones. That's why I naturally talk to things like it's a human. That's so awesome. Yeah. But this will help you take all of that cosmic multidimensional light, all this stuff, and help you pull it down into a human way of being. Right, so like if you want to be a healer or a teacher or a guide or a coach, you've got to make that tangible for humans. Have y'all ever been around somebody and they're like all up in the clouds and like talking very esoteric, metaphysical, and like they're just way up here all the time, and like they're not talking tangibly? Does that make sense? And it's not going to help you on your human existence. Both of those things are necessary. Like, we need to thrive as a human and as a multidimensional being. Okay, we can't bypass over being a human, because you, Sage, you, whatever your name is in here, you decided to come here for a very specific reason. And if you're trying to stay up here in the ethers and the clouds all the time, you are denying this version of you's experience. So let me show you all this video because this really helped me. Okay, so there's this video on YouTube, and if you want to take a screenshot, I'll hold it up. It's called, this one right here, The End of Inner Conflict, and it's by Matt Kahn. And basically what he talks about in here is how there's a human form of you and then there's a multi-dimensional form, and sometimes there'll be a war in between both of you, and it creates a lot of chaos and dissonance and disruption. And so he talks about how to step outside of yourself as a mediator between those two. It's almost like Akashic record healing, okay? But how to step out as a mediator and talk to your human self and your multidimensional self and help them come to a level of understanding with one another. Okay? That video changed my life. Me too. Like, please go watch this because it will unlock something within you. It will help you see yourself in a different lens, and part of that is Akashic healing, is what he's talking about. I learned how as a kid. My mom taught me some of this. Wow, yay! Okay, we're gonna get back to the chakra system here. Okay, so working on our main 7, Earth Star Chakra. His name is Matt Kahn. I'll hold it up one more time so you can take a screenshot. He's a great teacher too, not just this video, like he is like a very enlightened, like ascended master being. But Matt Kahn, at the end of inner conflict. Okay. So now we're going to get into, it doesn't show it on here, but this is where your high heart chakra would be. So your high heart chakra is in between your heart chakra and your throat chakra. It sits like right here. And this is where a lot of our generational trauma is held within, and ancestral trauma. This is also where you project light language out of. You channel it through your causal chakra, which we're going to talk about that, but you project it from here. So when you hear the term like I speak from my heart, it's connecting on your higher heart chakra. Okay, so if you are trying to do that type of generational trauma, ancestral trauma, that is the chakra you need to be working with. Okay, it's turquoise. It also helps you like with light language. I will say that some people do light language in many different ways, many different facets. It's not all just like speaking in a language. If you've heard before, you can do light language through art. You can do it through writing. I do light language with my hands. I also speak in my native tongue light language over people. Like sometimes I'm speaking Reiki over people, sometimes I'm speaking quantum healing over people, sometimes I'm speaking light language over people. But if you want to activate that and utilize that gift, that's where we need to be working from here. Okay? Has anybody heard of the high heart chakra before? It's also connected to your thymus gland. And so if you are having health related issues, that's gonna be a really good one to work with, your Earth Star chakra and your high heart chakra. It can help regulate a lot of things for you. Okay, now we have our causal chakra here, causal chakra. So you have your crown chakra here, and then you have your causal chakra back here. It's connected to the moon. It's your translator chakra. It helps you hear your higher self and your guides more clearly. It can also help you hear the record keepers more clearly, the people that are in charge of the Akashic records, the Pleiadians. I haven't heard of it, just the throat and the heart. But let me light this incense really quick. It's also connected to the unicorn kingdom and the angel kingdom, or the dimensions, if you will. And so if you want to get into channeling work, your causal chakra is the one you need to work with. That is where you pull cosmic energy from, and where like you can access your Akashic record, you're pulling it through your causal chakra. So the more that you work with your causal chakra, it's like an amplifier. Pleiadians, know about them. Yeah. Oh, thank you for the follow. I appreciate that. But that's a lot of our divine feminine energy is not female energy. Divine feminine energy is held within your causal. So if you've been like way too in your masculine energy, and we're all pulling away from that, we're all moving more in like the divine feminine age, working with your causal chakra is going to be very beneficial. Now I will say that when you start working with that, it syncs up with the moon because it's connected to the moon, and you start getting really affected by the new moon and the full moons, like on an amplified degree. So just a heads up. Okay, so that's why sometimes you got to really be good at grounding through your Earth Star chakra so that you can regulate your system. Are the Akashic keepers always Pleiadian? I think there's a lot of there's a lot of different beings that work with the Akashic records, but the Pleiadians are the ones that are like, it's held within the Pleiadian star system. So not always Pleiadians, but it's held within the Pleiades. If that makes sense, like they've been keepers of it for a long time, like the OG librarians. Okay. Now we can get into our soul star chakra. Hold on, let me hold it up. Okay, so we have our crown chakra, our causal chakra, and this is our soul star chakra. So your soul star chakra is where your Akashic records are held. It has all the information outside of this human incarnation. So like your starseed origins, like if you've been incarnated in the dragon dimension or the angel dimension, you know, all that stuff. So that is sitting, your human incarnations in your Earth Star chakra, soul contract. And then up here, everything else. Okay, but again, that stuff doesn't matter if you're trying to bypass over your human experience. And so that's why we got to ground further in order to access those things. Okay, then you have your stellar gateway chakra. Hold on. Oh Lord, why is it not showing up? Okay, then you have your stellar gateway chakra, and your stellar gateway chakra is where your oversoul is. So your oversoul is the original incarnation. It's like your soul spark when you first came into existence. And so all of this in your chakra system and your Akashic records and your everything is like feed looping back up into your oversoul. And so when you were doing quote unquote past life healing, right, it is like layerly healing up to the oversoul. I have to go. I'll watch your stuff later. Sorry for the enthusiasm. Oh no, it was great. It was great. It was great. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about those? So you see how we need to do the main 7, Earth Star, and then come up here to the top one. So that is how I access way more of my records and working with other people and doing sessions. And it took time. It's not something that just like opened up, you know, automatically. Like I had to do a lot of healing with my inner children and trauma stuff and working on stuff in my adult life, and then working my way up to those like higher dimensional frequencies. The Akashic records are extremely high frequency too, like the highest frequency. And so when I first started, I wasn't able to be in there for very long. Or like when I do Akashic record readings with people and I get done with the session, I have to do an immense amount of grounding. Like so much grounding afterwards, because we're like in a whole different dimensional space. And if I don't do the grounding, it makes 3D human life like very, very difficult. You feel like super floaty and like disassociative almost. And so you have to have very good grounding practices to be able to access them for long periods of time. Okay, so transpersonal chakras. Now we're going to talk about brain waves. Okay. So does anybody in here know who Joe Dispenza is? Joey D, if you will. I'll show you a picture. Okay, so this is Dr. Joe Dispenza. If you want to take a screenshot, feel free. Okay, yes, we love him. Joey D. Okay, so Dr. Joe Dispenza was a fundamental key part of me becoming a record reader and energy healer, because what he talks about a lot of things, but this in particular. Okay, so these are your brain wave states. Most people are living in beta. Okay, this is where we're experiencing a lot of stress, a lot of chaos, self-limiting beliefs, just all wrapped up in our emotional state, just like so deep down in your 3D human existence, okay? Like very much away from your multidimensional self. Okay, like you in it. You cannot access your records from that state because it constricts you down into your lower chakras where fear sits and where trauma sits and where like all that stuff like chaos, self-limiting beliefs, like all that heavy, dense, sludgy stuff, that is beta state. Okay. Oh, thank you for the follow. So we need to work our way up the frequency ladder. Okay. This is what we do with healing. Okay. Doing like inner child healing, or, you know, just healing in general in your life. This is where we do meditation to learn how to be the observer. This is where we start learning how to connect with our higher self. And so we're not living in those states of being, or those past narratives, or those behavioral patterns, or those triggers. You got to start to kind of like pull away from those things and look at them instead of like being and experiencing them. Okay? Because the Akashic records ultimately is an observer state of being. It is consciousness expansion. It's being able to look at everything objectively so you can make forward movement, right? And know thyself on a deeper level and clear things out on a deeper level. So you can't do that from beta state. And so what the states we need to be in are theta, and I'll hold these up if y'all want to take a screenshot. What we need to be in is theta state and delta state. Okay, so theta state is when you are super relaxed. This is when your subconscious is the most open to suggestion. This is why people say like, oh, you need to listen to affirmations right before bed, or you need to listen to them right when you wake up, because you're in theta state. Theta state is also the state you get in when you're watching television or when you're scrolling on TikTok. You are opening up your subconscious and you're very relaxed, and you're kind of like, it almost feels like you're, you might feel like kind of like numbing feeling, you know what I mean? Where you're just like actually not watching sometimes, you're just like pulling that information in. That's why we have to be careful about the things that we are watching and listening to. Because when you're in theta state, your subconscious is getting programmed. Okay. Then we dive down into delta state. So a lot of people, when they first start trying to access their records, whether you're doing a meditation or you're doing a guided meditation, or whether you're just sitting in a meditative state, you fall asleep. Every single time I was trying to access my records in the beginning, one, you might need that. Like your subconscious is open and you're in a healing state, so it's probably healing you on like deep levels. But again, that's like really high frequency, and you have to learn how to stay awake. Like I can consciously now go lay on my bed and automatically drop down into my subconscious or into the records. But that took a lot of practice and a lot of time teaching my physical vessel sage, right? This version of me, to access those states and those brainwaves. That's why I say we need to look at Dr. Joe Dispenza, because he teaches you how to do that. Like I watched tons and tons and tons of his content and put those things into practice, and then I learned how to automatically drop down in those states. Like if there's something that is going on in my life that I really need support and guidance with, that's like way deep down in my subconscious, I can go lay down and just get in there and then talk to my subconscious or my inner children or my past versions and say, hey, what's going on? Why are we triggered? Why are we upset? All those things, okay? Instead of being triggered and upset. But it takes time and practice to do that. But you have to be able to get into delta brainwaves to get into your records. You are going into a different dimensional space. It is not just going inside of self. You are actually going somewhere else. You're still in your body. You're still aware. You're not like unconscious, right? You can wake up at any time, but it's a completely different frequency and dimension that you have to access. And so you have to be able to get in a very, very, very deep meditative state. Now, neurodiverse people and empaths and light workers, who in here has a hard time meditating and sitting still? I know I did. Okay. The point of meditation is not to get rid of your thoughts. I will say that. I think people put a lot of pressure of like, oh, well, I can't sit. You're not supposed to sit in complete silence. You won't. Especially if you're neurodivergent. You got a lot of tabs open, okay? The point of it is to not attach to those thoughts. You know how like you attach the thoughts and then we catastrophize and then we start going down this rabbit hole and then it's just like stress and anxiety and all that stuff. Meditation teaches you how to let the thoughts go by, how to not emotionally attach to them, and how not to go down those rabbit holes. So like when I'm meditating or even in the Akashic records, I still have thoughts coming up, but I'm like, oh, not right now. Don't need that. Like when I do Akashic record readings with people, okay, everybody knows that we, like, who's an energy healer in here? Okay, if you're an energy healer, you still got your own shit going on in your life. Like, excuse my language, but you got your own stuff. Like, we got our stressors and everything and all that stuff. But when you are healing with somebody, you are able to step outside of 3D self and just be in a completely different plane of existence where none of that stuff matters, and you don't even, like, you're not even thinking about it, because you and the person that you're working on healing have stepped into this whole nother dimensional space. Okay? So like when I do Akashic record readings with people, like I might be going through something really difficult in my life, and normally it would be causing me a lot of stress and anxiety, right? Just like ruminating. But when I sit in this chair that I'm in right now to do sessions with people, all of that stuff disappears, because now I'm in that higher frequency state with said person, or with myself even, like when I'm in my own records, right? But you have to learn how to get down in delta states and theta states with your brain waves in order to do that. And empaths and light workers have a very difficult time sometimes doing sitting meditations. Do active meditations. Active meditations completely transform my life. I would try and sit, wasn't working for me. You need to do something that is keeping your physical body, your physical vessel moving while you are trying to meditate. So that could look like you going on a walk, washing the dishes, cleaning your house. Have you ever noticed, like, when you're doing a physical action, it's a lot easier to let go of your thoughts because your physical body is moving? You don't have to sit and learn how to meditate in silence. That works for some people, it doesn't work for everybody. And so I did active meditations to learn how to disconnect from those thoughts and let them just go by, right? And then I can sit in the silence. Or I would do guided meditations with the Akashic records. And that way there's somebody talking and it's keeping the tabs at bay, like all the thought tabs. But you don't have to sit in the silence if you're just learning how to do meditation. And we're not trying to rid ourselves of all the thoughts. We're just not going down rabbit holes. And we're not attaching to them. Because thoughts, if you can think of a thought, that means you're not the thought. You're the observer. And you can choose whether you want to believe that thought or not. Your brain is there to help keep you safe, and your ego is there to help keep you safe. Self-limiting beliefs are there to help keep you safe. But you can choose whether you attach to them or not. And if you attach to them, then you do a self-fulfilling prophecy, and then you get that in your reality. Whatever thought you choose is what your reality is going to be. What most of us have done is like conditioned ourselves to have obsessive thought compulsive disorder, where you attach onto the negative things and then you get evidence of it, and then it just keeps you in that cycle. There's no reason that you can't just become obsessive compulsive about positive thoughts. Like if you're always saying to, like, I have self-limiting beliefs come up. I'm not saying I'm over that, okay? I have self-limiting beliefs, I have doubts, I have fears, I have imposter syndrome, but I will say that through working with my records and learning how to meditate and healing chakras and inner child healing and all that stuff, I can catch those now. If they start saying, oh, what about this? Yeah, okay, what about that? But what about this? What if everything always works out for us? What if we have $1 million in our bank account? What if our calendar is full of clients? What if me and my son have a great communicative relationship? What if, just like all the wonderful what ifs. You got to retrain your subconscious to latch onto those things instead of the negatives. Because if you latch onto the negatives, then you get negative. Right? And it just takes time, it takes practice. Like when I first started my journey with Akashic records and healing all this stuff, like I couldn't catch my thoughts. But now I can. Do I always? No. But for the most part. And that's why I completely shifted my life into a whole new state of being, because I chose not to believe those thoughts anymore. They're just there to keep you safe. They love you. They're trying to protect you. We got trauma responses. We got safety mechanisms in place. Cool. But I don't have to attach to those things. Okay, so that's what meditation helps you learn how to do. But don't feel like you have to sit in the silence to do it. There's other options available for you. Is there a decent guided meditation to help a person get to the Akashic records? Yeah, there's some on YouTube. Like, it doesn't really matter what, it literally doesn't matter what meditation it is. Like, there's not one that's better than the other. It's you utilizing them to train yourself to get into delta states, into theta states. That's it. It doesn't matter which one. Because once you get into it, you're going to decipher the information that you need while you're in there. So it doesn't really matter which one. Okay, let me pull this up. Okay, so we talked about brain waves, equally as important, and active meditations. Again, when you're in your records, yes and no questions do not work because timelines are shifty and you have free will. So you have to ask questions how, what, and why. Open-ended questions. Okay? Because when you're in those higher states of being as well, like, you'll see why yes and no question. It's one thing for me to say that to you right now sitting here, but you got to kind of be in there to see why. Okay? Because life is open-ended. Life is all about change and possibilities, and you being the creator of your life and reality. Like, it can be whatever you want it to be, right? So if you use yes and no, you're like very much constricting yourself and what is possible for you. Like, you're saying, okay, well, this is it, or this is it. It's almost like if you're trying to make more money, okay, and you're like, okay, well, I made $2,000 last month, and so that means I'm going to make $2,000 this month. Well, then yeah, you will. Because you chose that timeline. But if you say, I don't know how I'm going to make more money, but I believe it's possible for me to double my income, now you're opening up the realm of possibilities. And you're saying, yeah, that's actually available for me. Okay, and believing it's available for you, that is literally how I have like doubled my income over and over and over again. Because I used to live in that frame of mind. Okay, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna open the realm. Okay. So, brainwaves. Okay, so this book is what helped me start on my Akashic record journey, but I will say it's a great book. It's super activating, and this woman is an angel. You need to use your intuition discernment whenever you're learning how to do something, okay? Because I was following what she was saying in this book to a T, which greatly helped me. Because it taught me how to have a ritual. Rituals can be very important for people and very beneficial because it helps you learn how to flip into that frequency and that state of being. So she was like, this is how you do it. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. And that's what I did. I did every single thing that she said as that ritual. Okay? I don't do that anymore, though. I don't need it. I could just hop on a reading with somebody and we in your records. Okay, so use your discernment and your intuition. Rituals are not for everybody. Just because somebody says some way to do things does not mean that it is representative for you. Just like the things that I'm saying to you right now, this is my journey. Okay, and what I have seen through my spiritual practice and helping other people, but that does not mean that it is your solid guidebook. Okay, so you got to find your own path. But I will say that this book was extremely activating, and I do highly recommend getting it. Very beneficial. Now, she does talk about things that you cannot do to access the records, and I have seen some different things, but that came with time. And practicing and doing readings and things, okay? This is a good place to start, all right? So if you want to take a screenshot, this is How to Read the Akashic Records, and it is by Linda Howe. I think it's like $13 online. It's very easy to read. Very, very easy. Now, are you going to have to read it several times? Probably. You know how like you read something or you'll watch a movie or listen to a song and then you get downloads from it and then you do it again and then you get more downloads? It's because this is consciousness expansion. Like, it takes time and practice to get better at these things and to have deeper access within and with other people. Okay, so I will say that when you start reading your own Akashic records, it changes the dynamics with people around you too. Because let's say that you have some interpersonal relationships and there's like a little conflict, a little disagreement. You start to look at things objectively. I keep on trying to say it wrong. Objectively. Oh my God. You start looking at things from an objective place, and you start to realize they are mirror reflections of you, and they're there for a reason to teach you a lesson. And so you kind of stop being in the, I don't want to say like victim mode necessarily, but sometimes we be in that, like everybody knows, okay? And you start seeing like what part that you're playing in that. And maybe that's, you need to hold strong boundaries. Maybe it's, you know, maybe it is that other person and you need to create space in between you and them. But then you start to see like where you play a part in every single thing in your life. And so that's why I mean, like, when you get into the Akashic records, sometimes it's all fun, magic, whimsy of, like, past lives and starseeds and all this stuff. Sometimes it's a real rude awakening in your face. Okay? Because when I started getting into it, I was like, oh, shit. I have been completely bypassing healing all of my trauma and stuff with my inner children. And I am the reason that I have all these behavioral patterns and triggers and all this stuff. Now, are the things that happened to me in childhood? Absolutely. But it's still your responsibility to like heal those things, because nobody's going to do that other than you. So for years, I just completely ignored all that stuff. And so when I started getting into the records, my guides were like, well, here you go. Right? Now, are there a lot of fun things that came with that? Absolutely. And I learned so much about, you know, like my oversoul and higher self and different incarnations and all this stuff. But you got to be prepared. It's a lot of work. But that work has a huge payoff. It like completely recalibrates your whole entire reality. Okay, to a much better one. Okay. So the book. Okay. So when you are learning to read your records or other people's records, what you're doing is you're learning how to micro shift and pivot. And so I made a video about this the other day where, excuse me, master timeline shifters sometimes feel like you have a very rocky foundation at all times. Like it's very unstable because it's like you can't stick to one thing and you're always changing your mind. What actually is happening is you are looking at all the available timelines out in front of you and you're like making movements in every moment to stay on the most optimal one. And so a lot of manifesting generators experience this. Like I'm one where it's like, why can't I just stick to one thing? Because that's not the path for you. Like sometimes people need to do things in steps like A, B, C, D, E, F, G, right? That's an old way of being. That's the masculine way of being. Very like goal oriented to prove your success and your achievements. The age that we're stepping into now is maybe you go from A to H and then P and then Z. Okay, and you have to listen to your intuition, and even when things don't quite make sense as to why you're headed down that path or you're doing the things that you're doing, when you look back, it's like, oh, now I can see. Like when I look back at my life, there's been like, let's call them eras or pivots where I made a decision that wasn't making sense in the time and I didn't understand it. That's happened all throughout my life. But now looking back, I realized I was reading my own Akashic records and my timelines available in front of me. And I said, let me hop on this one because it'll get me here faster. That is why I have been able to have so much success in my life while being on the spiritual path, because I've always listened to my intuition, but I didn't realize at the time what I was actually doing on a deeper level. And that's what you do with other people too. Like when I'm doing Akashic record readings with people, sometimes the answer I give them is not the answer that they were expecting. Because I'm like, yeah, you could do this linear state of being and it's going to take you a long time to bring these manifestations in, because that's an old way of doing things. Or you could just do this and quantum shift over here a lot quicker, because time in the Akashic records and quantum shifting does not work the same as 3D time. When you learn how to do this, you can manifest things extremely quickly into your life. You let go of that concept. And it's more about getting in frequency alignment. Yeah, you can do the old way of being, of like hustle, grind, and like have all these extrinsic goals and stuff, like great, and we still need to do those things. But when you learn how to quantum shift and quantum manifest, it doesn't take you that long. Okay? Like, you can bypass a lot of different steps, but that's about getting yourself in frequency alignment with your manifestation to bring it in. That's where the universe starts aligning you with people and experiences that, like, magic, miracles. They're not miracles. You just aligned yourself to the frequency of that manifestation. And the universe is like, here you go. Okay. That's why all the chakra work is important, and healing your inner children, because in order to be in the vibrational frequency state alignment with your manifestations, you got to do all that stuff. Like, you have to heal your inner children and your behavioral patterns and your triggers and like all that pain from the past. Like, all that stuff has to be cleared out, because otherwise you're looking through a trauma lens in life. You're manifesting through a trauma lens. You're manifesting more negativity into your life. Empaths and light workers are such powerful manifestors. That's why some of us have like a very difficult time in our 3D human life, because you are manifesting that stuff from stress and chaos and anxiety because of unhealed trauma and behavioral patterns and triggers. But when you heal and clear that stuff out, now you can be in your upper chakras and you can be in your upper frequencies, feeling elated and joyful and peaceful and happy, and manifesting from that instead of down here, right? Because if you're manifesting from past narratives and past pain, it self-prophesizes, and then you get it in your future. Like, that is one of the fundamental things that have helped me completely shift my life. Okay, yeah, got to heal all that stuff. I need an alignment of my frequencies. Yeah, it's a lot of layers. It's a lot of layers to go through. You're not gonna do it all at one night, right? Like, it took me a long time to get to this space. That's why I teach now, so maybe it won't be as long for you to access these things. Okay, does anybody have any questions about the things that I was talking about? And then also, I have an email list of Akashic record resources, like transpersonal chakras, meditations to access your records, some workshops I've held on the records, link to that book, all the things, like a starter pack, if you will. If you want that, you can go to, you can DM me with your email address, like on TikTok or Instagram. And just be like, and just send me a note that says, hey, can I have those Akashic record resources? And I'll send them to you. Do you teach quantum healing? I do. I do teach quantum healing. Akashic record is quantum healing. Is it kind of? But quantum healing is where you're doing that like deep soul level healing, where you're healing many different facets of self. And it's where you learn to heal yourself on a subconscious mindset level. It's like where you're doing huge clear outs, right? But that all starts with these steps. Like, you got to work your way up to quantum healing. Like, when I first started doing healings with people, I was doing subconscious mindset reprogramming, because that's the psychology mental level. And then I went up and started doing like trauma healing. And then I went up and then started doing Akasha healing. And then I went further up and then got into quantum healing. So they all kind of work their way up the ladder, if you will. If anybody wants a one-on-one Akashic record reading, I do those as well. You can go to my profile and click, and they're in there. They're 90-minute sessions, so we get into it. Okay, and if you're wondering, like, what does Akashic healing help with? Okay, so it depends on where you're at on your journey. Like I said, like while we're going through these chats, what it is going to do is help you quantum shift into a more preferable timeline. So maybe that equates like you need to do some inner child healing, and the records will tell you this is exactly what you need to be working on right now. Or this is how you let go of behavioral patterns and triggers. This is how you get into your soul purpose. This is why you have karmic relationships. This is, have you spoken any vows over your Akashic records and other timelines? Do you need to help any other timelines heal right now? Here is access to your spiritual gifts. But that all depends on where you're at on your journey too. Like sometimes I've been in my records and they'll be like, you need to go clean your house. Okay. And then sometimes, cause like a clutter, like I'll give you an example. Okay. So I have been in my records and have unlocked like these wild spiritual gifts. And then other times I've gone in my records and my higher self and my guides are like, you need to clean your house. Because a cluttered space creates a cluttered mental and spiritual space. Because your house and your car are outer reflections of your internal state. And so they're like, none of that stuff over here matters if you're living in like chaos, right? And so all of it is equally as important to one another. And that's always like when I'm giving readings to people, I'm always like, listen, they're going to tell your guides and your higher self are going to tell you what you need to hear. It may not be what you wanted to hear, but they're going to tell you what you need to hear. And they're like, this is what you need to do to make forward movement. Okay. I just got clear the clutter and it's so free. Because that's just as important. Your human stuff is just as important as the multidimensional, etheric, cosmic stuff. Because you're here living this experience. And that's why I was saying like it's so important to tap into your Earth Star chakra to connect you more into your human experience, because you can only go up as high as you ground in. I had way more access to my Akashic records and other people's Akashic records when I learned how to connect more into my human incarnation. Because all this stuff up here doesn't matter if you are struggling in your human life. If you have a whole bunch of trauma and like you're just not great interpersonal relationships and you hate your job and like all this, like you got to work on that stuff. And then that stuff can come in and like help amplify your experience, if you will. You're one of the good people. Oh, thank you, Ryan. That's very sweet. I appreciate that. But again, if you want that email resource, I will send it to you, and I will stipulate what we talked about earlier is not everybody is ready to access them yet. So you got to take your time with it. Work on your chakras, and some people will be ready to go. Maybe you've been on your self-awareness journey, you've been on your healing journey, you doing it, you can get right in there. Okay. So I'll wait just a second to see if anybody else has any questions before I get off. And if you want an Akashic record reading or inner child healing, I do that as well. Those are in my profile. Or if you need help with